We are live. According to StreamYard, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter.
That's it.
UHF, VHF channel 19.
Coming to you today in living color.
Yeah, go to your Dish Network, channel 277. I'm just kidding. Hi, we are here to do the the Tesla streaming, Tesla earnings call, like live streaming the Tesla earnings call. It starts the actual conference call that Tesla does. Let's back up. I bet we have people that are perhaps on here that don't even know that every publicly traded company is required to do an earnings release telling us the numbers, the public. Whether you own the stock or not, you have access to their quarterly earnings report. And they have to do a quarterly earnings call where they talk to investors too. It is part of the SEC regulations, one of the very few that they actually enforce. I will repeat for anybody who doesn't know this, that Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, is the single biggest gift that the cryptocurrency industry has ever gotten, because he's never enforced a single law that are clearly being broken by cryptocurrencies. But that is not the topic for today. It is Bryce Smith and Cody Willard from 10,000 Days Hedge Fund / Trading with Cody. I got Bubblehead Bernanke in the back. I've got the Millennium Falcon. Bryce, what do you got? You got a cross back there. We can barely see.
And some a painting of our local, my aunt did, of our mountains and horses and stuff.
Cool.
Background.
That picture right there is Bryce's great granddad. It's a real picture. He's wearing a tuxedo with a buckskin jacket, riding a paint horse, and he's carrying a rifle. It's one of the coolest pictures of all time. So we're here to talk Tesla. Let's run through the numbers. Maybe I'll share my screen real quick. As I mentioned, they did report the actual numbers. Share screen. Tesla Q2 model. Here's Bryce and I, mostly Bryce, made a proprietary Tesla model for this quarter. That's in the green in the center here. These are the numbers that he expected. When I went through and did my version of it, I raised most of those numbers. But the quarter itself, they delivered. These are not adjusted numbers here. We actually went with the real number. The adjusted number that Tesla reported for earnings was 42 cents.
Yeah, take that out. We were playing with this and took out the severance. So here we go.
Oh,
there we go.
Thank you. That's the real number right here. Tesla reported 42 cents. We had modeled in that we thought it would be 52 cents. Again, these are non-adjusted. If you watch CNBC or watch Yahoo or something, listen to Yahoo's numbers, the adjusted numbers that Tesla reported 52 cents instead of 62. Our non-adjusted would have been about 62 cents. The point of the story is they beat on the top line. They were better than expected on revenues. But they had a one-time charge of $600 million that goes here in the operating expenses line. And so that took about 10 cents out of earnings that we otherwise would have seen. So
the reason they had the restructuring charge was...
Say it again.
I was going to tell them why they had the restructuring charge.
They laid off 17,000 employees out of 120,000 people working there in the last 3 months. And so when you lay someone off, you have to take a charge for it. It costs you money for severance, for their COBRA, their health insurance. And
Tesla usually pays about 3 months worth of their salary and insurance and benefits, even after they've been laid off.
So with that, we figured, to tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, it was about $25,000 or $30,000 per employee that Tesla had to pay for this restructuring. Right. So that's the $600 million, and otherwise the numbers were darn good. And frankly, I'm surprised that the market is not liking the numbers, but the stock's been on a tear coming into this earnings report, and it's not down bad after hours. It's down like 2%, which Tesla can do that on a random Tuesday in 30 minutes if there was if Elon tweeted the wrong Republican loving or Democrat hating or something, if he pissed off the wrong person who owned a few shares and decided to sell it. What were you going to say, Bryce?
It was a record revenue quarter. It was their highest quarterly revenue ever, $25.5 billion. It wasn't their highest quarterly deliveries for vehicles, but they actually had pretty nice revenue from storage, energy storage business, which is mega packs and power walls for your house.
And for utilities, not just for most. I mean, seriously, Bryce, what would you guess? 70 or 80% of the battery packs are sold to utilities, 20 or 30% to residences or businesses? Certainly by volume, I would say it's that the pricing is probably better on the retail somewhat. But yeah, and basically there are these giant boxes. You may have seen them. They look like semi trailers, and utilities are using them to store power because renewables are intermittent. Solar doesn't produce power at night, for example, and so you have the batteries there to provide power whenever you don't get it from the grid. So that's the revenue from that was up like 150% sequentially. Right here on line 5, last quarter it was 1.6 million. Bryce had it modeled in at 3,024 million. It was 3,014 million. I give him full credit for that line. And but yeah, I mean, that's a double. It was 1.6 to 3, not quite a double, but darn near 90% revenue growth in that segment. And yes, if you'll notice here, automotive revenue was down from Q2 of last year by about $1.6 billion, $1.3 billion. And that was more than made up for by the batteries and the energy storage business. And services revenue was up about 5%. Services includes the
charging network,
supercharging network, which now Ford and other non-Tesla EV makers have signed up. Tesla allows people like Ford Mustangs to come charge at a Tesla supercharger. And Tesla gets to charge a little bit more to Ford than they do to, say, a Tesla driver like myself. But regardless, it's growing, and more people who buy Teslas then go also in supercharge. And then it also includes like connectivity. I pay $10 a month for my Tesla to be connected to the internet. Things like that. So yeah, as we're talking right now before the call starts, we probably have another 4 or 5 minutes, maybe 10, because Elon shows up late sometimes. But if you got a quick question, you can throw it in the chat. I think StreamYard will pick it up whether you're on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube if you ask a question. Go ahead, Bryce.
I was just going to say too, I don't know if you mentioned, but the services business also includes the like parts and fixing, like the maintenance type stuff, which they mentioned in the deck is actually starting to like be a significant business for Tesla as the fleet has now grown to 6 or 7 million vehicles out there now.
That's right. And let's be clear, Tesla cars and most EVs have much less charge. Like it's a lot less. There are fewer things to fix. There's no clutch. There's no spark plugs. There's no oil. So it is a much, GM and Ford make billions servicing their cars. Tesla is going to end up making a few $100 million in revenue servicing 4 million, 5 million in the existing fleet. What were the questions, Joe?
First, a comment from Cabana Crypto.
This is President Bryce. Do you have a Joe Biden impersonation? Look,
folks, this is President Joe Biden calling in.
I have COVID. Okay.
Anyways,
look, that's great. All right, appreciate it, Joe. Is Tesla a buy at these levels? I mean, look, it's our biggest position in the hedge fund. It's my biggest position personally. We have not sold a single common stock share of Tesla. We bought a few puts and shorted a couple of calls against our common to hedge it in the hedge fund. Because what's the hedge fund do again, Bryce? Hedges. Yeah, so we hedged. But yeah, look, we have a book called The Ultimate Tesla Book.
Here.
You got it, Bryce?
Yeah, I got it. The Ultimate Tesla Book with
The Ultimate Tesla Book. So, yeah, and in the book, we talk about how the fact that we think Tesla could have a $30 trillion market cap generating $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion of profit in 14 to 15 years, 2040. So if you're a long-term investor like I am, and you're looking over the next 10, 15, 20 years, yes, Tesla's a buy here. If you're worried that it might, if you don't want it, if you can't handle it going down 10 or 20% tomorrow or next month for no reason other than, again, Elon tweeting the wrong thing or something, then no, maybe Tesla's not for you. But if you've got a long-term view, yeah, I think Tesla goes much higher from here over the next 5, 10, and 15 years. All right, Bryce, are we? You got the call going on another?
Yeah, let me pull it up here. We're gonna live stream the live stream.
We're gonna doing it live. A lot of you people will get that reference if you're a meme person.
Share
I used to work at Fox. Bill O'Reilly used to get mad at me in the elevator because he'd be like, Cody, will you please quit calling Republicans socialists? It's not the Republican Democrat socialist regime. I was like, it is until it's not.
Got another question. They're still waiting on the calls.
All right, excellent. All right, we're waiting on Elon. Not the first or the last time we'll do that. The Fast Money Bros are saying, sell Tesla. And they have been negative on Tesla the entire ride. Some of those guys on Fast Money have been short Tesla the entire 5 years I've owned it. And the last 5 months that I've been loading up on it, they have been shorting it. The Danny Downers. Yeah, Dan Nathan, I think, is one of them. I don't know Dan Moses. They are shorting, thinking it goes to 50. I don't know if he's saying they're wrecked. I guess probably they've been wrecked by Tesla for the last few months, but they're going to get paid tomorrow unless Elon comes on the call and says that, the cheap model that Tesla is going to start selling for $15,000 or $20,000 is going to be available in the fourth quarter or something like that. I do expect Elon will say something that, just like he tweets something that sometimes he tweets and the stock goes up 5 or 10% because he's promising robots next year, or he tweets something that is like insulting to somebody and they.
Elon.
Here we go.
Thank you.
Woohoo!
So to recap, we saw a large adoption acceleration in EVs, and then a bit of a hangover as others struggle to make compelling EVs. So there have been quite a few competing electric vehicles that have entered the market, and mostly they have not done well, but they have discounted their EVs very substantially, which has made it a bit more difficult for Tesla. We don't see this as a long-term issue, but really as fairly short-term. And we still obviously firmly believe that EVs are best for customers and that the world is headed for a fully electrified transport, not just of cars, but also of aircraft and boats. Despite many challenges, the Tesla team did a great job executing, and we did achieve record quarterly revenues. Yep. Energy storage deployments reached an all-time high in Q2, leading to record profits for the energy business. And we're investing in many future projects, including AI training and inference, and a great deal of infrastructure to support future products. We won't get too much into the product roadmap here because that is reserved for product announcement events.
Too bad.
But we are on track to
the Model 2
deliver a more affordable model in the first half of next year. Really, by far, the biggest differentiator for Tesla is autonomy. in addition to that, we have scale economies, and I think we're the most efficient electric vehicle producer in the world.
Yeah,
So,
Bryce, it's amazing how people just talk
this-
about Tesla and ignore the fact that they're solving full self-driving.
While others are pursuing
all
different
the time.
parts of the AI robotics stack, we're pursuing all of them. This allows for better cost control, more scale, quicker time to market, and a superior product. Applying not just to autonomous vehicles, but to autonomous humanoid robots like Optimus. Regarding full self-driving and robotaxi, we've made a lot of progress with full self-driving in Q2, and with version 12.5 beginning rollout, we think customers will experience a step change improvement in how well supervised full self-driving works. Version 12.5 has 5 times the parameters of 12.4.
Wow.
And will finally merge the highway and city stacks. So the highway stack is still, at this point, is pretty old. So often the issues people encounter are on the highway, but with 12.5, we finally merged the 2 stacks.
My Tesla car's
I
now
still find
passing on 2 million highways, by the way.
most people actually don't know how good the system is. And I would encourage anyone to understand the system better to simply try it out and let the car drive you around. One of the things we're going to be doing just to make sure people actually understand the capabilities of the car is when delivering a new car and when picking up a car for service, to just show people how to use it and just drive them around the block. Once people use it at all, they tend to continue using it. So it's very compelling, and this, I think, will be a massive demand driver. Even unsupervised full self-driving will be a massive demand driver. And as we increase the miles between intervention, it will transition from supervised full self-driving to unsupervised full self-driving, and we can unlock massive potential in the fleet. We postponed the sort of robotaxi, or the sort of product unveil by a couple months, where it's shifted to 10/10, so the 10th of October.
October 10th.
And this is because I wanted to make some important changes that I think would improve the vehicle, the sort of the robotaxi, the main thing that we're going to show, and we're also going to show off a couple of other things. So moving it back a few months allowed us to improve the robotaxi, as well as add in a couple other things for the product unveil. We're also nearing completion of the south expansion of Giga Texas, which will house our largest training cluster to date. This will be an incremental 50,000 H100s plus 20,000 of our hardware 4 or AI5 Tesla AI computer. With Optimus, Optimus is already performing tasks in our factory, and we expect to have Optimus production version 1 in limited production starting early next year. This will be for
Exciting.
Tesla consumption. It's just better for us to iron out the issues ourselves. But we expect to have several thousand Optimus robots produced and doing useful things by the end of next year in the Tesla factories. And then in 2026, ramping up production quite a bit. And at that point, we'll be providing Optimus robots to outside customers. That'll be production version 2 of Optimus.
Domo arigato.
For the energy business, this is growing faster than anything else. We're really demand constrained rather than production constrained. So we're ramping up production in our US factory, as well as building the Megapack factory in China. That
He's talking about Megapack.
roughly double our output.
I was talking about robots.
I don't think so.
Maybe more than double. Maybe triple potentially. So, in conclusion, we're super excited about the progress across the board. We're changing the energy system, how people move around, how people approach the economy. The undertaking is massive, but I think the future is incredibly bright. I really just can't emphasize just the importance of autonomy for the vehicle side and for Optimus.
That's where the $30 trillion
market cap could sound crazy. I think Tesla producing at volume with unsupervised FSD, essentially enabling the fleet to operate like a giant autonomous fleet, and it takes the valuation, I think, to some pretty crazy number. ARK Invest thinks on the order of $5 trillion. I think they're probably not wrong. And long-term Optimus, I think, achieves a valuation several times that number. I want to thank the Tesla team for strong execution and looking forward to exciting years ahead.
Great. Thank you very much, Elon. And
sweet.
Bob has opening remarks as well.
Thanks. As Elon mentioned,
Initial
the Tesla
thoughts?
team rose to the occasion yet again and delivered on all fronts with some notable records. In addition to those records, we saw our automotive deliveries grow sequentially. I would like to thank the entire Tesla team for their efforts in delivering a great quarter. On the auto business front, affordability remains a top of mind for customers, and in response, in Q2, we offered attractive financing options to offset sustained high interest rates. These programs had an impact on revenue per unit in the quarter. These impacts will persist into Q3 as we have already launched similar programs. We're now offering extremely competitive financing rates in most parts of the world. This is the best time to buy a Tesla. If you're waiting on the sidelines, come out and get your car. We had a record quarter on regulatory credits revenues and as well. On net, our auto margins remained flat sequentially. It is important to note that the demand for regulatory credits is dependent on other OEMs' plans for the kind of vehicles they're manufacturing and selling, as well as changes in regulations. We pride ourselves to be the company with the most American-made cars and are continuing our journey to further localize our supply chain, not just in the US, but in Europe and China, as well for the respective factories. As always, our focus is on providing the most compelling products at a reasonable price. We have stepped up our efforts to provide more trims that have estimated range of more than 300 miles on a single charge. We believe this, along with the expansion of our supercharging network, is the right strategy to combat range anxiety. Since the revision of FSD pricing in North America, we've seen adoption rates increase meaningfully and expect this to be a driver of vehicle sales as the feature set improves further. Cost per vehicle declined sequentially when we remove the impact of Cybertruck. While we are experiencing material costs trending down, note that there is latency on the cost side, and such reductions would show up in the P&L when the vehicles built with these materials get delivered. Additionally, as we get into the second half of the year, it is important to note that we are still ramping Cybertruck and Model 3 and are also getting impacted by varying amounts of tariffs on both raw materials and finished goods. While our teams are working feverishly to offset these, unfortunately, it may have an impact on the cost in the near term. We previously talked about the potential of the energy business and now feel excited that the foundation that was laid over time is bearing the expected results. Energy storage deployments more than doubled, with contribution not just from Megapack, but also Powerwall, resulting in record revenues and profits for the energy business. An energy storage backlog is strong. As discussed before, deployments will fluctuate from period to period, with some quarters.
Bryce, did you tell me that the backlog on the energy is a year and a half? You place an order today for a Megapack, it'll be a year and a half before you get it?
Yeah, something like that.
Units from a single factory to markets across the world, customer readiness, and in case of EPC projects on construction activities. Moving on to the other parts of the business, service and other gross profits also improved sequentially from the improvement in service utilization and growth in our collision repair business. The impact of our recent reorg is reflected in restructuring and other on the income statement. Just to level set, this was about $622 million of charge, which got recorded in the period.
I think we mentioned that,
And
Bryce.
I want people to remember that we've called it out separately on the financials. Sequentially, our operating expenses, excluding such charges, reduced despite an increase in spend for AI-related activities and higher legal and other costs. On the CapEx front, while we saw a sequential decline in Q2, we still expect the year to be over $10 billion in CapEx as we increase our spend to bring a 50K GPU cluster online. This new
NVIDIA.
cluster will immensely increase our capabilities to scale FSD and other AI initiatives. We reverted to positive free cash flow of $1.3 billion in Q2. This was despite restructuring payments being made in the quarter, and we ended the quarter with over $30 billion of cash and investments. Once again, we've begun the journey towards the next phase for the company, with the building blocks being placed. It will take some time, but it will be a rewarding experience for everyone involved. Once again, I would like to thank the entire Tesla team for their efforts.
Great. Thank you very much, Vaibhav. Now let's go to investor questions. The first question is, what is the status on the Roadster?
With respect to the Roadster, we've completed most of the engineering, and I think
He says this every year.
Upgrades we want to make to it, but we expect to be in production with the Roadster next year.
Next year.
Every year.
It'll be something special.
It will have SpaceX rockets on the back of it, though. So
Fantastic.
it's going to be freaking
The
cool.
next question is about timing of Robotaxi event, which we've already covered. So we'll go to the next question. When do you expect the first Robotaxi ride?
Good question.
I guess that's really just a question of when do I expect the first, when can we do unsupervised full self-driving?
That's what they said. Yes.
It's difficult. Obviously, my predictions on this have been overly optimistic in the past. So,
You think?
I mean, based on the current trend, it seems as though we should get miles between interventions be high enough that
can't even
too
finish
far
the answer.
to test the humans
Flapping.
that you could do unsupervised possibly by the end of this year. I would be shocked if we cannot do it next year.
Okay.
So next year seems highly probable to me based on point simply plus the points of the curve of miles between intervention. That trend exceeds humans
Elon has some PTSD
for
for
sure next year.
And he should. I have PTSD of him promising full self-driving every year for 5 years.
Thank you very much.
The
Our third
Roadster doesn't
question
move the
is,
needle.
Cybertruck is an iconic product that wows everyone who sees it. Do you have plans to expand the cyber vehicle lineup to a cyber SUV or cyber van?
I like the question.
I think we want to limit product announcements to when we have a specific product announcement event rather than earnings calls.
I'm going to say yes.
Great, thank you.
Someday.
Our next question is, what is the current status of 4680 battery cell production and how is the ramp up progressing?
Talked about that in the press release.
4680 production ramped strongly in Q2, delivering 51% more cells than Q1, while reducing COGS significantly. We currently produce more than 1,400 Cybertrucks of 4680 cells per week, and we'll continue to ramp output as we drive costs down further towards the cost parity target we set for the end of the year. We've built our first validation Cybertruck with dry cathode process made on our mass production equipment, which is a huge technical milestone, and we're super proud of that. We're on track for production launch with dry cathode in Q4, and this will enable cell costs to be significantly below available alternatives, which was the original goal of the 4680 program.
Great.
Thank you very much. The next question is, any update on Dojo?
Yeah, so Dojo, I should preface this by saying I'm incredibly impressed by NVIDIA's execution and the capability of their hardware.
Yeah.
And what we are seeing is that the demand for NVIDIA hardware is so high that it's often difficult to get the GPUs, and there just seems this. I guess I'm quite concerned about actually being able to get state-of-the-art NVIDIA GPUs when we want them, and I think this therefore requires that we put a lot more effort on Dojo in order to ensure that we've got the training capability that we need. So we are going to double down on Dojo, and we do see a path to being competitive with NVIDIA with Dojo. And I think we kind of have no choice because the demand for NVIDIA is so high, and it's obviously their obligation essentially to raise the price of GPUs to whatever the market will bear, which is very high. So I think we've really got to make Dojo work, and we will.
So you're talking about the Dojo super chip,
Right.
the AI chip that they
The
put
next
in
question
Dojo
is, what
supercomputer.
type of accessories will be offered with Optimus?
Optimus is intended to be a generalized humanoid robot with a lot of intelligence. So it's like saying what kind of accessories would be offered with a human. It's just really intended to be able to be backwards compatible with human tasks. So it would, use any accessories that a human would use.
They probably won't wear a neck like a Mr. T necklace arrangement, but
Thank you.
other than that,
The next question is, do you feel you're cheating people out of the joys of owning a Tesla by not advertising?
We are doing some advertising. So
Yeah,
we're saying-
I'll say something.
We do like a
my
couple of
belief is that
man.
we need to be providing the best products at a reasonable price to the consumers.
And I will say
Just
the
to give
Tesla is
you
the
a
best
fact,
product in the
in
world.
US alone in Q2,
Say that again.
The Tesla car is so good. They have the best product, and they really do sell themselves anytime someone rides in one. But yes, they need to do a Super Bowl commercial at this point. Like, get some excitement in the general public. How many people watching our feed right now have never been in a Tesla and never think about a Tesla except when they see the one drive by, if they even notice?
Great, thank you very much. The next question is on energy growth, which we already covered in opening remarks. So we'll move on to the next one. What is the updated timeline for Giga Mexico, and what will be the primary vehicles produced initially?
Well, we currently are paused on Giga Mexico. I think we need to see just where things stand after the election. Trump has said that he will put heavy tariffs on vehicles produced in Mexico. So it doesn't make sense to invest a lot in Mexico if that is going to be the case. So we kind of need to see where things play out politically. However, we are increasing capacity at our existing factories quite significantly. And I should say that the cyber taxi or robotaxi will be produced here at our headquarters at Giga, Texas.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, as well. And
There were rumors it was going to be in Mexico.
Towards the end of next year for Optimus production version 2, the high volume version of Optimus will also be produced here in Texas.
Okay, those are good answers.
Great, thank you. Just a couple more. Is Tesla still in talks with an OEM to license FSD?
There are a few major OEMs that have expressed interest in licensing Tesla or Tesla Full Self-Driving, and I suspect there will be more over time, but we can't comment on the details of those discussions.
All right, thank you. And the last one, any updates on investing in XAI and integrating Grok into Tesla software?
I should say that Tesla is learning quite a bit from XAI. It's been actually helpful in advancing Full Self-Driving and in building up the new Tesla data center. Regarding investing in XAI, I think we'd need to have a shareholder approval of any such investment. But I'm certainly supportive of that if shareholders are.
Absolutely.
I think we need to vote on that.
I want to use XAI through Tesla.
I think that there are opportunities to integrate Grok into Tesla software. Yes.
You can talk to your
All
car
right,
and get
thank you very much.
logical
And
language.
now we will move on to analyst questions.
No!
The first question comes from Will Stein from Truist. Will, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Great. Thanks so much for taking my question. And this relates a little bit to the last one that was asked. Elon, I share your strong enthusiasm about AI, and I recognize Tesla's opportunity to do some great things with the technology. But there are some concerns I have about Tesla's commercialization, and that's what I'd like to ask about. Specifically, there were some news stories through the quarter that indicated that you redirected some AI compute systems that were destined for Tesla instead to XAI, or perhaps it was.
I hope Elon hangs
hangs
up on this guy.
Similarly, a few quarters ago, if you recall, I asked about your ability to hire engineers in this area, and you noted that there was a great desire for some of these engineers to work on projects that you were involved with, but some of them weren't at Tesla. They were instead at XAI, or perhaps even X again.
Oh,
So
shut up,
the
dude.
question is, when it comes to your capital investments, your AI R&D, your AI engineers, how do you make allocation decisions among these various ventures, and how do you make Tesla owners comfortable that you're doing it in a way that really benefits them? Thank you.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're referring to a very like an old article regarding GPUs. I think that's like six or 7 months old. Tesla simply had no place to turn them on. So it would have been a waste of Tesla capital, because we would just have to order H100s and have no place to turn them on. So it was just, this wasn't let's pick XAI over Tesla. There was no, the Tesla data centers were full. There was no place to actually put them. We've been working 24/7 to complete the south extension on the Tesla Gigafactory here in Texas. That south extension is what will house the 50,000 H100s.
He tweeted this answer months ago. Why is this guy asked this question? The
H100 server
first,
racks into place there, but we needed that to be complete. Physically.
what a waste of our
You can't
time
just,
to listen to this shit.
order GPUs and turn them on with no. You need a data center. It's not possible.
You need somewhere to put the
That
GPU.
was in Tesla's interest, not contrary to Tesla's interest.
What a
Does
dumb question.
Tesla no good to have GPUs that can't turn on? The split second that south extension is able to take GPUs, which is really just this week. We are moving GPUs in there, and we'll bring them online. With regard to XAI, there are people that only want to work on AGI. So what I was finding was that when trying to recruit people to Tesla, they were only interested in working on AGI, not the Tesla specific problems, and they wanted to do a startup. So it was a case of either they go to a startup, or and I'm involved, or they do a startup and I'm not involved. Those are the two choices. This wasn't they would come to Tesla. They were not going to come to Tesla under any circumstances.
Yeah. Great question there, Will.
Yeah, I mean, I would even add that, AI is a broad spectrum, and there are a lot of things which, we are focused on full self-driving as Tesla and also Optimus. But there's the other spectrum of AI which we're not working on, and that's the kind of work which other companies are trying to do in this
Right,
case,
large
XAI.
language models.
So you have to keep that in mind.
As Bryce and I have talked about many times, the fact is that Tesla is the only one who is doing the video rendering, the data of full self-driving, trying to teach digital objects like computers on wheels and computers in the humanoid form factor to interact with the physical world through artificial intelligence. The rest of them, from Llama to XAI to Google, OpenAI, and ChatGPT, all of those are large language models that work in the digital world still, but that you can talk to them and they can make videos for you and things. But it is a far, far different kind of AI that they're dealing with and commoditizing, frankly. Tesla's the only one playing in this world at scale, anyway.
Other maybe more limited variants, like similar to the cars that you make today, but with some changes or improvements or different, some other variability in the form factors. Should we expect that to be a significant part of the strategy in the next year or two?
I don't want to get into the details of product announcements, and we have to be careful of the Osborne effect here. So, if you start announcing some great thing, it affects our near-term sales. We're going to make great products in the future, just like we have in the past. And a story.
Great. The next question comes from Ben Callow from Baird. Ben, please go ahead and unmute
Please
yourself.
ask a decent question, Ben.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. When we think about revenue contribution and with energy growing so quickly and, Optimus on the come, how do we think about, the overall segments longer term? And then do you think that auto revenue will fall below 50% of your overall revenue?
Absolutely.
And then my follow-up is just on the last call, you talked about distributed compute on your new hardware. Could you just update us and talk a little bit more about that, the timeline for it, and how you would reward customers for letting you use their compute power in their cars? Thanks.
Good question.
Yeah, as I've said a few times, I think the long-term value of Optimus will exceed that of everything else at Tesla combined. So it's simply, if you just simply consider the usefulness, utility of a humanoid robot that can do pretty much anything you ask of it. I think everyone on Earth is going to want one. There's 8 billion people on Earth, so that's 8 billion right there. Then you've got all of the industrial uses, which is probably at least as much, if not way more. So I suspect that the long-term demand for general-purpose humanoid robots is in excess of 20 billion units.
That'd be 60 trillion at
Tesla
$30,000 pop.
has the most advanced humanoid robot in the world.
The entire
It's
global
just
economy is
has
100 trillion. So
manufacturing, which these other companies are not. And we've got a lot of experience with the most experience. We're the world leaders in real world AI. So
I said that.
we have all of the ingredients. I think we're unique in having all of the ingredients necessary for large scale, high utility, generalized humanoid robots.
Yep.
And the factories to build them.
That's why, my rough estimate long term is in accordance with the ARK Invest analysis of, a market cap of on the order of 5 trillion for, maybe more for autonomous transport. And it's several times that number for general purpose humanoid robots. At that point, I'm not sure what money even means. But in the benign AI scenario,
Only a billionaire is going to say at that point, I'm not sure what money
there's
really
no
means.
shortage
Come on.
of goods and services.
Money means
Anyone
buying
can have
food
pretty
for
much
your
anything you
children,
want.
dude.
It's a very wild future we're headed for.
On the distributed compute.
Yeah, distributed compute. That seems like a pretty obvious thing to do. I think where the distributed compute becomes interesting is with our next generation Tesla AI chip, which is hardware 5, or what we're calling AI 5, which is from the standpoint of inference capability comparable to a B200, an NVIDIA B200. And we're aiming to have that in production at the end of next year and scale production in 26. So it just seemed like even if you've got autonomous vehicles that are operating for 50 or 60 hours a week. There's 168 hours in a week. So you have somewhere above, I think, 100 neural net computing. I think we need a better word than GPU, because GPU means graphics processing unit. So there's 100 hours plus per week of AI compute, AI inference compute from the fleet, from the vehicles, and probably some percentage from the humanoid robots, that it would make sense to do distributed inference. And
I hadn't thought about the Optimus Robot being distributed.
100 million vehicles.
Yeah.
With AI 5
Right.
and beyond, because you have AI 6 and 7 and whatnot. And there may be billions of humanoid robots. That is just a staggering amount of inference compute that could be used for general purpose computing. It doesn't have to be used for the humanoid robot or for the car. So I think, that's a pretty obvious thing to say, like, well, it's more useful than having to do nothing.
Right.
All right, thank you. The next question comes from Alex Potter from Piper. Alex, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Perfect, thanks. Wanted to ask a question on FSD licensing. You mentioned that in passing previously. Was just wondering if you can elaborate maybe on the mechanics of how that would work. I guess presumably this would not be some sort of simple plug and play proposition that presumably an OEM would need, I don't know, several years to develop its own vehicle platform that's based on FSD. I imagine they would need to adopt Tesla's electrical architecture, compute, sensor stack. So correct me if I'm sort of misunderstanding this, but if you had a cooperative agreement of some kind with another OEM, then presumably it would take you several years before you'd be able to recognize licensing revenue from that agreement. Is that the right way to think about that?
No.
Yes. The OEMs do not move fast. It's not really a sensor suite. It's just cameras. But they would have to integrate our AI computer and have cameras with a 360-degree view. At least the gateway, like what talks to the internet and communicates with the Tesla system, that you need kind of a gateway computer too. So it's really a gateway computer with the cellular and Wi-Fi connectivity, the Tesla AI computer, and 7 cameras, or not cameras, again, a 360-degree view.
The OEMs might take years to get there, but it wouldn't take long to put it in a car.
The auto industry moves. It would be several years before you would see this in volume.
Okay, good. That's more or less what I expected. So then the follow-up here is, if you did sign an FSD licensing agreement with another automaker, when do you think you would disclose that? Would you do it right when you sign the agreement, or only after that multiple years has passed and the vehicle is ready to roll out?
I think it depends on the OEM. I guess we'd be happy either way.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of arrangement we enter into. A lot of those things we've not ironed those out yet.
And it doesn't matter.
We'll make that determination as and when we get to that point.
And the kind of deals that are obviously relevant are only if, some OEM is willing to do this in 1 million cars a year or something significant. It's not if it's like 10,000 or 100,000 cars a year. We could just make that ourselves.
Yep.
All right, thank you. The next question comes from Dan Levi from Barclays. Dan, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for taking the questions. First, wanted to start with a question on Shanghai. You've leveraged Shanghai as an export center, really due to its low cost, and that makes sense. Maybe you can just give us a sense of how the strategy changes, if at all, given the implementation of tariffs in Europe. Also, to what extent your import of batteries from China into the US, how that might change given the tariffs. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I covered some part of it in my opening remarks, but just to give you a little bit more, just on the tariff side, the European authorities did sample certain other OEMs in the first round to establish the tariffs for cars being imported from China into Europe. While we were not picked up in our individual examination in the first round, they did pick us up in the second round. They visited our factory, we worked with them, provided them all the information. As a result, we are adjusting our import strategy out of China into Europe. One other thing to note is in Q2 itself, we started building right-hand Model Ys out of Berlin, and we also delivered it in UK. And, we're adjusting as needed, but, we will keep adjusting. We're still importing Model 3s into Europe out of Shanghai. And, we are still evaluating what is the best alternate to manage all this. Just on the examination by the European authorities, like I said, we cooperated with them well. We are confident that we should get a better rate than what they have imposed for now. But this is literally evolving, and we are adjusting as fast as we can with this. It is. I would also add that, because of this, you've seen the impact that Berlin is doing more imports into places like Taiwan, as well as, UK I just mentioned. So it will keep changing, and we will keep adapting as we go about it.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. As a follow-up, I wanted to ask about the robotaxi strategy, and specifically the shareholder deck here notes that the release is going to be one of the gating factors is regulatory approval. So maybe you could help us understand, which regulations specifically are the ones that we should be looking for. Is it FMVSS that's standard? And then, to what extent does the strategy shift you've done with FSD more of a nationwide, no boundary approach? Is the robotaxi
They'll start city by city.
one that's more geofence, so to speak, and is more driven by a state-by-state approach?
Oh my God. These analysts.
I mean, our solution is a generalized solution, like what everybody else has. If you see it like Waymo and whatnot, they have a very localized solution that requires high density mapping. It's quite fragile. So, their ability to expand rapidly is limited. Our solution is a general solution that works anywhere. It would even work on a different Earth. So if you rendered a new Earth, it would work on a new Earth. So
Maybe like Mars.
This capability, I think, in our experience, once we demonstrate that something is safe enough or significantly safer than human, we find that regulators are supportive of deployment of that capability. It's difficult to argue with if you've got a large number of, if you've got billions of miles that show that in the future unsupervised FSD is safer than human. What regulator could really stand in the way of that? They're morally obligated to approve. So I don't think regulatory approval will be a limiting factor. I should also say that the self-driving capabilities that are deployed outside of North America are far behind that in North America. So with version 12.5 and maybe 12.6, but pretty soon we will ask for regulatory approval of the Tesla supervised FSD in Europe, China, and other countries. And I think we're likely to receive that before the end of the year.
Thank you.
Which will be a helpful demand driver in those regions, obviously.
Thank you.
No more follow-ups.
In terms of,
Done.
as Elon said, in terms of regulatory approval,
the vehicles are governed by FMVSS in the US, which is NHTSA, which is the same across all 50 states. The road rules are the same across all 50 states. So creating a generalized solution gives us the best opportunity to deploy in all 50 states reasonably. Of course, there are state and even local municipal level regulations that may apply to, being a transportation company or deploying taxis. But, as far as getting the vehicle on the road, that's all federal, and that's very much in line with what, Elon was just suggesting about the data and the vehicle itself.
And for the record, it's already a much better driver.
And to add to the technology point, the end-to-end network basically makes no assumption about the location. Like you could add data from different countries and it would just like perform equally well there. There's like almost like close to zero US specific code in there. It's all just the data that comes from US.
Yeah, to that end, Ashok, it's like, we can go as humans to other countries and drive with some reasonable amount of assessment in those countries. And that's how you design the FSD software.
Yeah, exactly.
Great, thanks, guys. The next question comes from George from Canaccord. George, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
It's going to be a good question, Bryce.
Hi,
Come on.
everyone. Thank you for taking my questions. Maybe just to expand on the regulatory question for a second. And I could be comparing apples and oranges, but GM canceled their pedalless, wheelless vehicle. And according to the company this morning,
It's GM!
was driven by uncertainty about the regulatory
You
environment.
know how much AI GM has?
From what we
None.
understand, and again, maybe I'm wrong here, but the robo-taxi that has been shown, at least in images of the
Comparing
public,
GM
is
to
also
Tesla is
pedalless
comparing apples to
and wheelless.
Really
there
is.
a different regulatory
He even
concern
know
just
it.
when you
He
deploy
said
a
it at the
vehicle like that
beginning.
that doesn't have pedals or a wheel, and that
Oh,
may that be
shut
different
up.
from just regular FSD on a traditional Tesla vehicle? Thank you.
Well, obviously, the real reason that they canceled it is because GM can't make it work, not because of regulators. They're blaming regulators. That's misleading of them to do so. Because Waymo is doing just fine in those markets. So it's just that their technology is not up to par.
Thank you, Elon.
And maybe just as a follow-up, I think you mentioned that FSD take rates were up materially after you reduced the price. Is there any way you can help us quantify what that means exactly? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we've shared we've seen a meaningful increase. I don't want to get into specific because
I got tired of listening to them. This is better. The Elon, go F yourself. All right, fine. I'll turn it off.
Cody may or may not have ordered a couple of those shirts today.
Yeah, we might have both ordered ourselves a Elon. We'll wear it next time. All right, how do I add?
one example.
Oops.
I have a more than 20-mile commute into the factory almost every day. I have 0 interventions on the latest stack, and the car just literally drives me over. And
This is what Elon wants to say to the analysts.
Right.
Steering wheel nag is almost not there, as long as you're not wearing sunglasses.
Well, we're fixing the sunglasses thing. It's coming soon.
Hi, Bob. That's it. Yes, Cabana.
We'll be able to have sunglasses on and have the car drive.
Yeah.
Are we really talking about sunglasses in a car?
Times I've talked with smart people who like live in New York or maybe down Boston and don't ever drive, and then are asking me about FSD. I'm like, you can just get a car and fly it.
Pretty simple.
If you're not doing that, you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. In rural New Mexico, we drive cars quite often.
The next question comes
More
from
than in New York
Pierre
City,
from
for
New
sure.
Street. Pierre, please unmute yourself.
Last question, please. I can't handle these analysts anymore.
Hey guys, thank you for taking my question. So it's on
What colors do you think are going to be available?
And I completely get it that with a universal solution, we will get like regulatory approval. We get there eventually, clicking up miles and compute, etc. And my question is more, how you think about deployment, because I'm still like, I'm thinking once you have a car that can drive everywhere, that can replace me, it can replace a taxi. But then to do the ride-hailing service, you need a certain scale. And that means a lot of cars on the road. And so you need an infrastructure to just maintain the cars, take care of them, etc. And so my question is, are you already working on that? Do you have already an idea of what?
They
like,
showed a
your
picture
plan
of
to
this,
deploy
Bryce,
looks
last
like?
quarter.
And is that like a
Let's see if he mentions
Tesla
Uber.
only plan, or are you looking at partners, local partners, global partners to do that? And I'll have a quick follow-up.
Oh, no, you don't get a follow-up.
This should just be the Tesla network. You just literally open the Tesla app and summon a car, and we send a car to pick you up and take you somewhere. We'll have a fleet that's, I don't know, on the order of 7 million that are capable of autonomy soon. In the years to come, it'll be over 10 million, then over 20 million. This is immense scale. The car is able to operate 24/7, unlike the human driver. So the capability to, like, there's this basically instant scale with a software update. And now this is for a customer-owned fleet. So you can think of that as being a bit like Airbnb. Like, you can choose to allow your car to be used by the fleet, or cancel that and bring it back. It can be used by the fleet all the time. It can be used by the fleet some of the time, and then Tesla would share in the revenue with the customer. But you can think of the giant fleet of Tesla vehicles as like a giant sort of Airbnb equivalent fleet, Airbnb on wheels. Then in addition, we would make some number of cars for Tesla that would just be owned by Tesla and be added to the fleet. I guess that would be a bit.
What are these analysts paying attention to that Elon's having to explain this shit again?
Right.
And there's an important clause we've put in every Tesla.
Most retail investors know the answer to this question.
Vehicles can only be used in the Tesla fleet. They cannot be used by a third party.
And he's going to have a follow-up. What colors of the cars will you put in on
do you think that scales like progressively, so you can start in a city with just a handful of cars and you grow the number of cars over time? Or do you think there is like a critical mass you need to get to be able to offer like a service that is of competitive quality compared to what? Like,
he turns it on, and there are millions of cars that have full self-driving now.
I guess I'm not conveying this correctly. The entire Tesla
you are,
fleet
Elon. You're fine.
Becomes active. This is obviously, maybe there's some number of people who don't want their car to earn money, but I think most people will.
That's
instant scale.
It's not 5 cars at a time, dude.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Colin from Oppenheimer. Colin, please unmute.
Bryce.
Yep.
Come on, Colin.
Sorry about that, guys. I've got 2 questions around energy storage. With the tight supply and the stationary storage, can you talk about your pricing strategy and how you're thinking about saturation in given geographies, given that some of these larger systems are starting to shift wholesale power markets in a pretty meaningful way quickly?
So we are working with a large set of players in the market, and our pipeline is actually pretty long, and there's actually a long end in terms of where you enter into a contract to where delivery starts happening. And so far we have good pricing leverage, and I'll have Mike chime in on this too.
Yeah, there's a lot of competition from Chinese OEMs, just like there is in the vehicle space. So we're in close contact with our customers and making sure that we're remaining competitive in where they're needing to be competitive to secure contracts to sell power and energy in the markets. We had a really strong contracting quarter and continue to build our backlog for 2025 and 2026. So we feel pretty good about where we are in the market. We realize that competition is strong, but we have a pretty strong value proposition with, offering a fully integrated product with our own power electronics and site level controls. So
yeah, and again, the aspect which people do not fully understand is that there's also a whole software stack which comes with our Megapack.
Right.
And that is a unique proposition which we have, which is only available to us, and we're using it with other stuff too. But that gives us a much more of an edge as compared to the competition.
Yeah, we find customers that they can sort of put together a hodgepodge solution, and then sometimes they'll pick that solution, and then that doesn't work, and then they come back to us.
yeah, and we're not really seeing saturation like on a global scale. There's little pockets of saturation in different markets, but we're more seeing that there's markets opening up given demand on the grid just continues to increase more than anyone expects. So that just opens up markets, really across the world in different pockets.
Yeah, I mean, just even on the AI compute side, right? These GPUs are really power hungry, and the amount of new pipeline which we're getting for people for data center backup and things like that is increasing at a pretty large scale.
Yeah.
Thanks. And then the follow-up here is around the 4680 process technology. On the Elon process, there's some news around your equipment suppliers. Can you talk about how far along you are in potentially qualifying an incremental supplier around some of those critical process technology steps?
Yeah, I can talk about that. As you're probably referring to the lawsuit that we have with one of our suppliers. Look, I don't think this is going to affect our ability to roll out 4680. We have very strong IP position in the technology, and the majority of the equipment that we use is in-house designed and some of it's in-house built. And so we can take our IP stack and have someone else build it if we need to. So that's not really a concern right now.
Yeah, I think people don't understand just how much demand there will be for grid storage. They really just the people I think are underestimating this demand by probably orders of magnitude. So that the actual total energy output of say the U.S. grid is, if the power plants can operate at steady state, is at least 2 to 3 times the amount of energy it currently produces, because there are huge gaps. There's a huge difference in the from peak to trough in terms of energy or power generation. So in order for a grid to not have blackouts, it must be able to support the load at the worst minute of the worst day of the year, the coldest or hottest day, which means that for the rest of the time, the rest of the year, it's got massive excess power generation capability, but it has no way to store that energy. Once you add battery packs, you can now run the power plants at steady state. Steady state means that basically any given grid anywhere in the world can produce, in terms of cumulative energy in the course of a year, at least twice what it is currently producing. In some cases, maybe 3 times.
All right, thank you.
This is a very profound thing.
It is. That's why I'm writing it down, Elon.
Thank you, Elon. The next question comes from Colin Langan from Wells Fargo. Colin, please unmute yourself.
Oh, great. Thanks for taking my questions.
Questions?
Do you hear me?
Get one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I guess we're going to ask, if Trump wins, there's a higher chance that IRA could get cut. I think, Elon, you had commented online that Tesla doesn't survive on EV subsidies. But when Tesla lose a lot of support, IRA goes away. I think Model 3 and Y get IRA help for customers, and I think your batteries get
they don't need it.
Credits. So just one, can you clarify if IRA ends, would it be a negative for your profitability in the near term? Why might it not be a negative? And then, any framing of the current support you get IRA related?
I guess that there would be like some impact, but I think it would be devastating for our competitors.
Bam.
And it would hurt Tesla slightly. But long term probably actually helps Tesla. That would be my guess. But and I've said this before on earnings calls. The value of Tesla overwhelmingly is autonomy. These other things are in the noise relative to autonomy.
That's right.
So I recommend anyone who doesn't believe that Tesla will solve vehicle autonomy should
what, Bryce?
Tesla stock. They should sell their Tesla stock.
You mean?
If Tesla will solve autonomy, you should buy Tesla stock. And all these other questions are
pointless.
Noise.
Yeah, I mean,
Annoying.
I'll ask this just to clarify a few things, that at the end of the day, when we are looking at our business, we've always been looking at it whether or not IRA is there. And we want our business to grow healthy without having any, subsidies coming in, whichever way you look at it. And that's the way we have always modeled everything. And that is the way internally also, even when we're looking at battery costs, yes, there are manufacturing credits which we get, but we always drive ourselves to say, okay, what if there's no IRA benefit? And how do we operate in that kind of an environment? And like Elon said, we definitely have a big advantage as compared to our competition on that front. We've delivered it, and you can see it in the numbers over the years. So there is, you cannot ignore the fundamental sides of the business. And then on top of it, once you add autonomy to it, like Elon said, it becomes meaningless to even think about the short term.
Okay. I think that's unfortunately all the time we have for today. We appreciate all of your questions. We look forward to talking to you next quarter. Thank you very much and goodbye.
That's excellent.
So
Elon at the end say that's excellent. He was, I think, being a little bit facetious. How bad are the analysts? How negative are the analysts? My gosh. Bryce?
Is this noise? Can you guys hear this noise or just me?
No, we only hear you. We do not hear a noise.
Yeah, they had some intense music going on in the background there afterwards. I was enjoying that. Yeah, the Wall Street sell side analysts have historically bad relationship with Elon.
Because of that. They're literally asking questions. And you and I both know as we're listening, we're like, who freaking cares about GM's car not being delivered? Or,
well, I mean, worse than anything is they just ask questions that we all know the answers to. Like, at least the retail questions that they got asked at the beginning of the call were like interesting and things that we hadn't thought of before, like things that are relevant to the story. So hats off to the retail people that ask those questions.
Bryce, how will you summon the car? Like, will you use an app or something?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, are you going to start with 5 cars? No, we'll start with 8 million that have full self-driving in them already. Like,
we'll send an over-the-air update like we've done 1,000 times already, and your car will drive itself.
And you'll get an update on your smartphone that will help you. Oh no, my phone died. Huh.
Well, you want to give some highlights? There's a few questions in the chat too. We might have some more.
Yeah, I'll hit a couple highlights. Let me hit the highlights, then we'll go through questions.
Okay.
Number one, Bryce, they talked a lot about robots and the Optimus robot. I'm going to start saying domo arigato, Optimus Roboto, every time we talk about Optimus robots. I'm not sure if you get that reference, Bryce. It's the only Styx song that doesn't suck. Sorry, anybody who likes Styx. Surely there's nobody that actually likes Styx. Anyway, you've talked about, I love this idea that you brought up, I think last week, where Tesla should start taking Optimus robot reservations, $1,000 a pop to reserve your robot, to get in line, to be one of the first to get them delivered. every corporation that needs them in a warehouse or anything else is going to order tens of thousands. I'm going to order 2 or 3, and they would have tens of billions of dollars immediately of people's money that they can put on their balance sheet to build capacity to make these robots.
Yeah. And I just think on that, the timing is really not that far out, because like with the mega packs, for example, which those are a little bit bigger than an Optimus Robot, but you know, they're selling those for delivery 18 months from now, which is 2026, right? Yeah. So like the time is, I mean, if they're going to start shipping volume production in 2026, then they need to start taking orders in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, Elon's optimistic on that. Yeah, we're going to be 2027, and then they'll start delivering like a handful to Pepsi, sort of like the semi truck. The other note I made is, boy, those analysts were all very negative and still pompous and holier than thou, frankly. We were at a conference.
I love that they are always implicitly trying to get through to Elon how they think he should run the business.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, just ask your questions, and maybe if you didn't spend so much time trying to tell Elon how to do his job, you could do your job better and have a better question.
That maybe they would. With Bryce and I, we were at Vail a month ago at a investment conference, and we presented Tesla as our idea. And the first question, the guy went on. It sounded like a sell side analyst on this call. He spent about 5 minutes explaining. I'm not joking. He started off his question by saying, quote, "I'll tell you one thing, Elon Musk knows nothing about the car industry." Anyway.
Nothing.
He only built the most valuable car company in the history of the planet.
The Model Y was the best-selling vehicle model of any vehicle last year.
The other thing I mentioned, how funny was it when Elon was like, well, I think we'll have full self-driving robo-taxis like next year. And he's like, even he was like, yeah, I hope. Fuck. I've been wrong on this for every year for 7 years in a row. It's a little annoying to make that prediction again.
Yeah.
He knows that even people like us who believe that he's going to pull this off, that Tesla can pull this off eventually, we're annoyed when he promises. Just freaking deliver it already.
Yeah. I do think on that the having the 100,000 H100 equivalents up and running by the end of the year will be a big help in moving FSD to the next level of 5 or 6 9 reliability.
I hope so. I'm not sure how much more data and capacity and inference and training they need if the billions of miles they've already got in the system on the Dojo system that's supposed to be training the car to self-drive. I mean, I guess it's the long tail edge cases, random things that don't hardly ever happen when you're driving, because truly the 12.4 that I'm already using on full self-driving, it's 99.9% of the time perfect. And as I mentioned, you might have heard me, I was trying to talk there. Elon, I think I tried to accidentally spoke over him, but my car started passing other cars on a 2-lane highway now, going in the opposite traffic, the lane going with traffic going the opposite lane. But it's looking, and if it's got the dotted line, the dashed yellow line, and there's no car coming, it doesn't. I couldn't believe it. And then the other thing I wrote down there, Bryce, was, as Elon even said, he's like, hey, that's powerful or whatever. That's important. And that was, if the batteries, if the utilities get and the data centers get this battery, get the mega pack batteries installed quickly enough over the next 2 to 3 years, they really probably don't even need to build more energy generation. They just need energy storage.
Right.
So that they can use the energy that they generate even in a peak load when it's needed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, we don't need 10 new nuclear power plants in the next year. We can just use the power that we've got, right? If we can figure out how to optimize the grid.
And just it's the optimization of the timing and the energy generation getting distributed when it's needed to the data center. And like at our house when we needed like air conditioning. And, I've been in New York. There's twice in the 15 years that I lived in New York, I lived through blackouts. And it was always the most, the hottest day that we've had in years when that would happen. and it's because everybody's running their air conditioning and it overpowered the grid. There's more demand than supply of energy on the grid. If there was battery stored energy in New York, it's Con Ed, and Con Edison's power distribution centers throughout the city, if there was enough battery storage in them, it wouldn't have blacked out. It would have been, maybe had a brownout here and there, but it wouldn't have been a blackout for sure. And did you make any notes, or should we hit questions?
I've got a bunch of notes, but we don't want to go through all those.
What was the most important one?
I don't know. I think getting the 50,000 GPU supercluster online within the end of the year, I'm standing by it. I think it's a big deal.
Do you believe?
I know. Go ahead.
No, what?
I think that just what we've seen in this, like the stagnation and somewhat of ChatGPT, is evidence of the fact that you need more compute to get to the next level of improvement in the product. And I think that's where we're at right now, is waiting on Blackwell, waiting on these superclusters to get built. And I think when those things start getting built, we will see improvements in FSD and ChatGPT and the other AI products that are out there. I think it's
notice that Elon said that the FSD that the Dojo chip that Elon and Tesla are designing and hope to get in their system within a year or two, he thinks it could be. He didn't mention Blackwell. He said the GB200, which is the rack that NVIDIA is making that puts the Blackwell AI chips, 32 of them in each. And so he's talking about competing with the entire rack, unless he misspoke, but he did say GB200 specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also just want to mention, while you brought that up, that the distributed compute, by using the latent compute that you have in your Tesla car, and or using the latent compute that you might have in an Optimus robot, would have a lot of potential. I hope that they do figure out how to leverage compute elsewhere. To give an analogy here, I don't know if longtime people, older people than Bryce, I'm not sure he'll know what I'm talking about here, but years ago, you could download a little app in your browser that would run algorithms and computations on your computer on the internet, and it was like tracking. It was looking for aliens. You probably don't remember this, Bryce.
No.
It was trying to use distributed compute to look for aliens. Napster would be another example. You use people's computers to send files through the internet. Napster's no longer around, but distributed compute is important over time. And now what they're talking about is using the computer in your car to actually do like some sort of compute for AI when people are using a Tesla AI, or when Tesla itself is using AI. Questions?
Here's the first one.
Energy number storage, we're quite bullish. No. Yes. What percentage do you think this could be of Tesla's future overall business? Look, it's a matter of timing. The Tesla business, the cars are right now doing, let's call it 100 billion a year. Energy's going to
back
do.
up while you're talking, and we can give you some context.
Say that again.
I'm going to pull up the model while you're talking, just so you have some context.
Sure. So $100 billion this year in cars. That should grow another 10 or 20% next year, maybe 30%. Full self-driving is not here. If full self-driving is here, all this stuff I'm talking about is moot. But 20 billion in cars this year, but it'll be 100 billion in revenue for cars over the course of the whole year. Energy was 3 billion. That would annualize out to 12 or 13 billion, which would be 13%. Services will annualize out to say 10 billion. So look, energy this year will be 10%. Services will be 8%. Cars will be 82%, something like that. Okay. You look forward 3 years. 3 years from now, energy will be 15 to 20%. Again, though, it gets messed up because if full self-driving happens, the average selling price of a new Tesla car triples.
Yeah.
So you got to work with this. And then, frankly, you look out 10 or 15 years and the Optimus robot would be selling, Tesla would be selling hundreds of millions, potentially a billion Optimus robots. at an average selling price of, let's take it down to 15 or 20,000 at that point, which would be a billion Optimus robots at 15,000 is 1.5 trillion, no, $15 trillion. So energy is going to not matter. That's what Elon was talking about when the guy was like, well, what's the tariffs on in Europe going to do to auto cells? And Elon's like, yeah, it doesn't, and subsidies for our cars, like all this stuff is fine and noisy, but in the end, the only thing that matters is full self-driving and Optimus robots. If you're going to have an $800 billion market cap right now, which Tesla does. If it was just the car business, this market cap would be 200 or 300 billion.
Next question.
Can you all shed some color for me on thoughts of the initial Optimus market? Is it the likes of production factories and e-commerce warehouses? Sure, but it's so much bigger. I mean, every distribution center is going to need Optimus robots instead of people, because Optimus robots work maybe 12 or 14 hours a day, and then you have to charge them. But, you charge for an hour or two. So, okay, call it 20 hours a day the Optimus robot can work, and he doesn't need health insurance. He might need some new screws occasionally, or he might fall and have to replace them. But the costs are just, the economics are just so insanely positive for you to replace factory workers. But it's beyond factories. Like, within 3 to 5 years, if this actually works, let's call it 5 years. Within 5 years, if Optimus robots is being rolled out, you're going to get your hair cut by Optimus robots. You're going to have the rebar at your construction site tied, wired together by the Optimus robots. You're going to have Optimus robots is going to be, I want it in my house tomorrow. My daughter Amaris has gotten too big. I got a hurt back. I can't carry her. I need Optimus robot to carry Amaris around every morning. I take her with me to get coffee in the kitchen. I need an Optimus robot to carry her. So that stuff is here. Like, as soon as Optimus is released, there will be hundreds of millions of retail people, consumers who want it, and there will be tens of thousands of companies that want tens of thousands of Optimus robots in their workforce. So it's everything. I mean, initial, yes, factories, low-hanging fruit, but quickly thereafter, it's going to be paddling canoes down the Grand Canyon when you're on vacation.
If Tesla is capacity constrained, though, and they can only make 100,000 Optimus the first year, how are they going to divvy that up?
It's sort of like the semi. Every Tesla has thousands of semis on back order for all kinds of distribution, logistics and delivery companies and food packaging companies. The only ones that they have delivered so far is Frito-Lay and Pepsi, which is the same company. So it will be, like a key partner, a giant enterprise like Pepsi or Coca-Cola or, some other factory company that needs it. So it'll be industry. It'll be enterprise, like factories first, and then eventually I'll get mine in 3 years after the first one's delivered to Pepsi.
Cool.
You agree with any of that or all of it?
Yeah, I think so. I just wonder if they might, it might go 4 or 5 years in factories and warehouses before it hits like retail type stuff. Just as they're ramping production and, making sure it's safe. And there's this probably going to be some public perception stuff that they need to deal with, moral type things. And
there'll be guys on Fast Money who are short Tesla stock who go order themselves and get their Optimus robot and show it, tell it to pretend you're choking me. And they're gonna be like, oh my God, I was attacked. It's Terminator.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think that'll be the first application of Optimus. Optimi. Right. If they're plural, I call them Optimi. So
I like that. Domo arigato, Optimi roboto.
Yeah.
Please repeat my energy storage? What's that one question? Oh, we did. Yep. Sorry, Kamani, you missed our answer. You'll have to watch it in a minute. Any more questions? We'll give it another 1 minute. Bryce, Tesla stock currently trading at 227, down probably 6.5%, 7% after hours, back to where it was like last Thursday or 2 weeks ago, Thursday or something. That'll put it back down on the year. It'll be down 10% on the year versus the NASDAQ up 18, 19%. Feet to fire. Tesla closed tomorrow. What price?
235.
230, 233 is the correct answer, Bryce.
There's a question there.
Do you buy more Tesla on this dip? Again, you probably didn't. Michael, you probably were. Let's leave that up there for a second. You probably were not here when I mentioned this earlier in the call. And the answer is, if you have a time horizon of 5, 10, or 15 years, absolutely you buy some and if you don't own enough, you buy some Tesla on this dip. If you're worried that the stock, if it would hurt you that the stock would drop another 10% from here in the next 2 weeks, don't do it, because that stock is very volatile. And if Elon tweets the wrong thing, it can be down 7%. If Reuters reports something true or false that's bad news about Tesla, it's probably false if it's Reuters talking about Tesla anyway. But the stock could be down 5 or 10% in 13 minutes on a random Tuesday. So you got to take it for what it's worth. If you got a long-term time horizon, and as Elon said, if you believe they can solve autonomy, it's a screaming buy. If you don't think Tesla can solve autonomy, it's a screaming sell. The stock should be at 50. Which happens to be the target of the guys on Fast Money, I do believe I heard earlier.
Yeah, I think somebody said that.
Was that in chat? No. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Fast Money Bros. Yeah, they think it goes to 50. If it's a car company, it goes to 50. If it's a full self-driving car company and an Optimus Robot company and an AI company, the stock will be at 2,000 or 3,000.
The energy business is getting to be a bigger piece of it, though. I do think that.
Yeah, but Bryce, let's do the math on this. Okay, $12 billion this year. Let's 50% growth next year gets you to 18 billion. 25% gross margins gets you $4.5 billion of gross profit. Take some expenses and costs out the rest, and you're talking, $2 or $3 billion of earnings 3 years from now in the energy business. Throw a 20, 30 multiple on that. At most, it's a $90 billion of valuation debt to the energy business. The market cap is 800 billion.
A 90 billion. The car business has a 90 multiple on it right now, if you do it that way.
So So I'm not throwing a 90 multiple on batteries. The car business has a 90 multiple on earnings right now because people believe it will be a full self-driving car someday. But otherwise, it would be a 20 or 30 multiple. So look, maybe in 3 years, the battery business is worth 90 billion. The market cap presently is 800 billion. Optimus robots and full self-driving have to work to justify the cost at this price. I don't care how good energy gets. There's no $1 trillion battery company.
I don't know about that. If you just took Elon on what he just said at his word, that's $1 trillion business.
When, in 10 years?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's do 50% per year. 50% per year for 10 years revenue growth is going to get you, what's the multiple on that? Probably 20 times? No, even more, probably 30 times. So then the revenues are talking $300 billion in revenue. We'll give it a generous 30% gross margin. Now you're $90 billion in gross profit. Now you're talking 40 or 50 billion dollars of net earnings. Throw a 30 multiple on it. You're $1.5 trillion. Okay, there you go. I don't believe that. It's the batteries. It's the AI and the Optimus robots that create value for Tesla.
I'm just saying it's you're assigning basically no value to it, and I think there is some value, more than $80 to $90 billion worth of value.
Yeah, I don't.
5 years.
Yeah. All right. Here we'll leave everybody with this. Share screen. Share. Stop share. Present. Share screen. Elon. Share.
So if somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself.
Elon Musk, in his first interview since publishing a post agreeing with a user making an anti-Semitic comment earlier this month on X.
I want to hear Elon say it.
Well, that's it. Did I lose you, Cody? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't think we can hear it.
You couldn't hear that?
No.
I was muted. Well, you could have said something earlier, Brian.
I did. I didn't know what you were doing. That's why I was asking.
Did you hear me? I said yes. All right, here. Turn off the mute.
It says you've muted yourself.
Going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go yourself.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
But go yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is.
Well, he didn't hold back. A slew of brands include.
Well, we lost Cody, folks. Thanks for tuning in today, and go subscribe at tradingwithcody.com and buy a Tesla book. We appreciate everybody tuning in today, and we'll see you sometime soon.